I remember the day I met Ethan as if it were yesterday. I was 25, just starting to carve out my place in the family business. It was a sunny afternoon in Birmingham, and the city was bustling with the usual energy. Ethan was introduced to me at a mutual friend's party, and there was something about him that immediately drew me in. He was charming, hardworking, and seemed to genuinely appreciate the simple things in life. We clicked instantly, and it didn't take long for us to start dating seriously. We married within a year of our first meeting. Ethan was 27, and I was 26. It felt like the right thing to do. Both of us were at a stage in life where we wanted stability. I had just finished my degree and was working in my family's retail chain business. My father, Robert, was the CEO, and I was learning the ropes, mostly handling administrative tasks while my father dealt with the strategic side of things. I was set to inherit the company one day, and despite the enormous expectations, I was content with my life and responsibilities. Ethan, on the other hand, worked as a warehouse manager for a local logistics company. He had completed high school and had a practical, hands-on approach to work that I admired. His job was demanding, and I knew it was not easy for him, especially with the physical labor involved. Yet, he never complained. He was proud of what he did, and I respected that about him. In the beginning, our marriage was smooth sailing. We supported each other, and our life together was filled with laughter and shared dreams. We talked about starting a family and looked forward to the future. However, as the years passed, our relationship began to shift. The joy we once shared seemed to fade, replaced by an undercurrent of tension and dissatisfaction. After 15 years of marriage, things took a turn for the worse. Ethan and I had been trying to have children for a while, but despite our efforts, we were unsuccessful. The frustration began to erode our bond. Ethan, who had always been patient and kind, started to change. He became distant and bitter, often placing the blame on me. It wasn't just the disappointment of not having children, it was how he began to view me as the source of his unhappiness. His late nights at work increased, and his once warm demeanor turned cold. I tried everything I could to help, including fertility tests, but Ethan was resistant. He refused to see a specialist, and his behavior grew more erratic. I began to suspect something more troubling was going on. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something he wasn't telling me. One fateful day, Ethan accidentally left his phone at home. I wasn't one to snoop, but something compelled me to check his messages. It was a decision that would change everything. A call came through from a young woman named Sarah, who spoke of a date with Ethan. My heart sank as I listened to the conversation. The betrayal was clear, and my world felt like it was collapsing around me. I didn't confront Ethan right away. Instead, I started gathering evidence quietly, knowing that the revelation of his infidelity would be a pivotal moment in our relationship. It wasn't just the fact that he had been unfaithful, it was the realization that the trust and love we once had were shattered beyond repair. Months passed, and the situation grew increasingly strained. One day, Ethan suggested we separate. To my surprise, I felt a sense of relief. I had already been contemplating the end of our marriage, and his suggestion seemed to be the catalyst I needed. We went through with the divorce, and I tried to move on, but the pain was still fresh. Then came the news that Ethan had quickly remarried. He proudly flaunted his new relationship with Sarah, the teenage daughter of the CEO of Lawrence Holdings, a prominent manufacturing firm. It seemed that Ethan had found a new source of wealth and status through his new wife. He mocked my modest lifestyle and seemed to take pleasure in my perceived misfortune. I stayed calm, even though his smugness stung. I knew that Ethan's newfound happiness was built on shaky ground. Little did he know that my family had a stake in Lawrence Holdings. My father's company owned the building that housed their operations, and I had a front-row seat to their struggles. It was in Manchester, at a high-end hotel, where the true drama unfolded. Ethan and Sarah were staying there, and fate had a way of bringing us face to face. Ethan, with his usual arrogance, boasted about marrying into wealth and finally achieving the status he had always desired. I listened in silence, my mind racing as I prepared to reveal the truth. As the conversation unfolded, I realized how far Ethan had fallen. His new life, built on the illusion of grandeur, was about to come crashing down. Little did he know, his dream of wealth was as fragile as the promises he made to me. The day I saw Ethan and Sarah at the hotel in Manchester was one I'll never forget. I had been steeling myself for this encounter, knowing that the truth about Lawrence Holdings and its financial troubles could shake Ethan to his core. As I walked into the elegant lobby of the hotel, I spotted them almost immediately. Ethan, looking every bit the smug man who thought he had it all, was by Sarah's side. They were engaged in animated conversation, clearly enjoying the luxuries their new life seemed to offer. My heart raced with a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, but also a profound sense of resolve. I had been preparing for this moment for weeks, gathering all the information I needed. I had already learned that Lawrence Holdings was struggling with financial instability and had accumulated several months of unpaid rent. My family's retail business had recently acquired the building where Lawrence Holdings operated, which meant I had direct insight into their financial difficulties. I approached them with as much composure as I could muster. Ethan's face lit up with that familiar, self-satisfied grin when he saw me. Sarah looked at me with a mix of curiosity and disdain, perhaps feeling some sense of superiority over me. "Rosie," Ethan exclaimed, his tone both surprised and overly friendly. "What a coincidence. I didn't expect to see you here." I managed a polite smile.
"Ethan. Sarah."
"Yes, it's quite a coincidence. I didn't expect to see you either." I could see Ethan's eyes dart nervously, but he quickly masked his unease with a forced grin. We exchanged pleasantries, and I noticed Sarah's eyes flicking between us, clearly intrigued by the tension. "So, how are you enjoying the hotel?" I asked, my tone light, but my mind focused on the upcoming revelation. Ethan was quick to boast. "It's fantastic. Sarah and I have been enjoying all the luxuries that come with her family's success. It's a whole new world for us." I nodded, trying to hide my smirk. "I'm glad to hear you're enjoying it. You know, Ethan, there's something I need to tell you. You see, my family's company recently acquired the building where Lawrence Holdings operates." Ethan's face grew puzzled. "Really? I didn't realize that. Why didn't you mention it before?" I leaned in slightly, savoring the moment. "Well, there's something else you should know. I've heard some concerning things about Lawrence Holdings. It seems they've been facing some financial troubles lately." Ethan's expression changed from curiosity to concern. "Financial troubles? What do you mean?" I took a deep breath and continued. "I've seen the records myself. Lawrence Holdings is behind on several months of rent, and it appears there are serious issues with their financial management. The company's situation is far from as rosy as you might have been led to believe." Sarah's eyes widened, and Ethan's face grew pale. "You must be mistaken," Ethan stammered. "The company is doing well. We've been assured of its stability." I shook my head. "I wish that were true. The building's ownership and financial records are in my family's hands, and I have the proof right here." I pulled out a few documents, including some financial statements that clearly showed Lawrence Holdings' overdue payments and mounting financial problems. Ethan and Sarah looked at the papers in disbelief. The reality of their situation began to sink in. I could see the cracks forming in the facade Ethan had so proudly displayed. He tried to regain his composure, but the damage was done. The illusion of wealth and success he had clung to was crumbling before his eyes. "What does this mean?" Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "It means," I replied calmly, "that the financial security you thought you had isn't as solid as you believed. The company's struggles are significant, and the wealth you thought you were marrying into might not be as substantial as you imagined." Ethan's face flushed with a mix of anger and embarrassment. Sarah looked mortified, clearly realizing that the glamorous life she had been promised was in jeopardy. The silence that followed was thick with tension. Ethan tried to muster a defense, but failed to come up with anything substantial. The reality of their situation was too stark, too undeniable. As I watched the realization dawn on them, I felt a sense of satisfaction, but also a twinge of sadness. It wasn't that I took pleasure in their misfortune. It was more about the justice of it all. Ethan had left me for a false promise of wealth and status, and now he was facing the consequences of his shallow decisions. I took one last look at them and said, I hope you both find a way to handle this. It's never easy facing the truth, especially when it's not what you hoped for. With that, I turned and walked away, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. The encounter left me with a lingering sense of unresolved emotions. It was clear that Ethan's new life was beginning to unravel, and as much as I had moved on from our past, seeing him confronted with the reality of his choices was a stark reminder of the pain he had caused. As I left the hotel, I couldn't help but reflect on how much my life had changed. Despite the heartache and betrayal, I had grown stronger, more resilient. The journey ahead was mine to shape, free from the shadows of the past. After my encounter with Ethan and Sarah, I felt a sense of closure, but I still had one more crucial chapter to write in my story. The aftermath of that confrontation began to unfold, and the reality of my own life continued to evolve in ways I hadn't fully anticipated. I knew that while Ethan's world was collapsing, my own was moving forward in a new, positive direction. Weeks passed, and the news about Lawrence Holdings' financial troubles began to seep into the broader business community. It wasn't long before reports of a major fraud scandal at the company surfaced, further destabilizing their already precarious position. The firm had been caught in a web of financial mismanagement, and the £3 billion empire that Ethan and Sarah had banked on was in jeopardy. I watched with a mix of detachment and relief as Ethan's new marriage started to falter. The illusion of a glamorous life was quickly replaced by the harsh reality of mounting debts and a failing business. Ethan's attempts to maintain a facade of success were increasingly futile. His once confident demeanor was replaced by visible anxiety and frustration. I could only imagine how disheartened he must have been as the once ideal life he had pursued so fervently began to crumble. Despite all this, my life was taking a turn for the better. I had been working hard to rebuild my sense of self and to focus on my future. The divorce, though painful, had ultimately been a catalyst for personal growth. I found solace and strength in my work at the family business, where my role was becoming more significant. My father had been supportive, and I was starting to take on more responsibilities as the future leader of our successful retail chain.
But there was more to my story.
In the midst of all these changes, I met someone new, someone who brought genuine joy and stability into my life. His name was Jack, and he was everything Ethan wasn't. Where Ethan had been distant and dismissive, Jack was kind and attentive. He was a supportive partner who believed in me and my dreams. Our relationship grew steadily, and with it came a newfound sense of happiness and hope for the future. The most profound revelation came when I discovered I was pregnant. The news filled me with a mix of emotions, joy, anticipation, and a touch of disbelief. My infertility, which had been a source of pain and blame in my previous marriage, was no longer an issue. I was going to become a mother, and it was a testament to the fact that my worth wasn't defined by Ethan's misguided judgments or our failed relationship. I couldn't wait to share the news with my family and with Jack. Their support was unwavering, and I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the way they stood by me. Jack was ecstatic about the pregnancy, and we began planning our future together, filled with optimism and excitement. As the months went by, Ethan's life continued to deteriorate. The fraud scandal at Lawrence Holdings gained more media attention, and the company faced mounting legal troubles. Ethan and Sarah's attempts to salvage their reputation were in vain, and the financial strain became increasingly apparent. Their world, once seemingly perfect, was now a chaotic mess of legal battles and financial ruin. During this time, my father's company had become even more prominent in the business world. The acquisition of the building that housed Lawrence Holdings had proven to be a strategic move, further solidifying our position in the market. Our retail chain was thriving, and the company's overall valuation had reached an impressive £3 billion. It was a stark contrast to the collapsing empire that Ethan had sought to align himself with. One evening, as I was preparing for a quiet night in with Jack, I received a phone call from my father. He had some news that was both exciting and significant. "Emily," he said, "I've just finalized a new deal that's going to make our company even stronger. We've acquired a major new contract, and our position in the market is more solid than ever." I could hear the pride in his voice, and it filled me with a sense of accomplishment. "That's wonderful news, Dad," I replied. "I'm so glad to hear it. Everything seems to be falling into place." As I hung up, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The challenges I had faced, the heartbreak I had endured, and the journey I had undertaken were all leading me to a brighter future. The shadow of my past was fading, replaced by the promise of a new beginning. I was no longer defined by the failures or betrayals of my past, but was forging a new path with confidence and hope. Reflecting on everything that had transpired, I realized how far I had come. I had faced the pain of betrayal, confronted the harsh realities of Ethan's decisions, and emerged stronger and more resilient. My new life, with Jack and our upcoming baby, was a testament to my growth and my ability to overcome the obstacles in my path. As the final pieces of Ethan's crumbling world continued to unfold, I remained focused on my own journey. The past was behind me, and the future was bright with possibilities. I had found my strength and my worth, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next with optimism and grace. As the final chapters of my story continued to unfold, I found myself reflecting on the incredible journey I had been through. Ethan's life was spiraling, and my own path was leading me to a future I had never imagined, but one that felt perfectly right. It was time for me to close this chapter and fully embrace the new life I had built. The media frenzy around Lawrence Holdings' fraud scandal reached its peak. The firm, under the scrutiny of regulators and journalists, faced the severe repercussions of its financial mismanagement. The company was not only in disarray, but was on the brink of collapse. The once prominent firm was now a cautionary tale of greed and deception, and Ethan and Sarah were at the center of it all. I followed the news from a distance, not out of bitterness, but out of a need to understand how the ripples of Ethan's choices had affected his world. It was a grim reminder of how quickly fortunes could change, and it reinforced my decision to leave behind the pain and embrace a fresh start. The financial ruin of Lawrence Holdings was a direct result of the fraud scandal, and the £3 billion empire that had seemed so secure was unraveling. Ethan's involvement in the scandal became a public embarrassment, and the life he had once boasted about was now a symbol of failure. During this turbulent time, I continued to focus on my own growth and the happiness I was building with Jack. Our relationship was flourishing, and we were eagerly preparing for the arrival of our baby. The excitement of becoming a parent brought a new dimension to our lives, and Jack's unwavering support made everything feel possible. The joy of planning for our future, coupled with the anticipation of welcoming a new life into the world, provided a stark contrast to the turmoil of my past. In the midst of all this, I received an unexpected call from my father. He had some significant news to share. "Emily, I wanted to let you know that we've made another major acquisition. The company's growth is exceeding our expectations, and our position in the market is stronger than ever." I felt a swell of pride and relief. "That's fantastic news, Dad. I'm so proud of what we've achieved." My father continued, "And there's more. Our valuation has officially reached £3 billion. We've also secured a new partnership that's going to propel us even further. I thought you'd want to hear this, especially with everything you've been through." Hearing this was a moment of profound satisfaction for me. The company's success was not just a testament to my father's leadership, but also to the strength and resilience I had developed. Our family business was thriving, and I was set to take on a significant role in its future. The journey from the pain of betrayal to this point was a testament to my growth and determination. As my father's company continued to prosper, Ethan and Sarah's world continued to disintegrate. The once confident facade they had presented was now replaced by a harsh reality. The financial scandal had left them with mounting debts, and their efforts to recover from the mess had been largely unsuccessful. It was a striking example of how the pursuit of superficial wealth and status could lead to downfall. In contrast, my life was filled with hope and promise. I was eagerly anticipating the arrival of our baby and preparing for a future that was brighter than I had ever imagined. Jack and I had created a loving home, and the support of my family and friends was a constant source of strength. The sense of fulfillment I found in my personal and professional life was a direct result of my resilience and the choices I had made. The day finally arrived when our baby was born. Holding our child for the first time was an indescribable moment of joy and love. Jack and I were overjoyed, and our new family felt complete. The challenges of the past seemed distant, overshadowed by the joy of this new beginning. It was a reminder that life had the capacity to heal and to offer new opportunities, even after the darkest of times. As I looked back on everything that had happened, Ethan's betrayal, the financial ruin of Lawrence Holdings, and the personal growth I had experienced, I felt a deep sense of peace. I had faced adversity with strength and grace, and I had emerged from it with a renewed sense of self-worth and a clear vision for the future. My story, while marked by pain and hardship, was ultimately one of triumph and transformation. I had learned that true worth comes from within, and that resilience can turn even the most challenging situations into opportunities for growth. The future was bright, filled with promise and potential, and I was ready to embrace it with open arms. Ethan's story, on the other hand, was a cautionary tale of misplaced priorities and failed ambitions. His once seemingly perfect life had crumbled under the weight of his own choices. It was a stark contrast to the life I was building, one grounded in genuine happiness, love, and the realization of my own potential. As I looked ahead, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the journey I had undertaken and the lessons I had learned. My life was now a testament to the power of resilience, the value of self-worth, and the promise of new beginnings. And with that, I embraced the future with hope, knowing that I had the strength to face whatever came next.